Good evening. Good evening. Listen, conference, my name is Matt Goodwin and I want my country back.
The only people that seem to have any interest in talking about England are the cheerleaders for Brexit, for imperial nostalgia.
Here's a very interesting point of view from Caroline Lucas about how the left is seceding on the issue of patriotism. Somehow the right seem to believe if you're not flying a Union Jack or being anti-EU, you're not really pro-British for some reason. Now, I'm not blindly patriotic. I won't succumb to a politician's point of view just because they use jingoistic rhetoric and stand behind a Union Jack, but I do care about what happens to the country and the people who inhabit it. I want what's best for all. Anyway, let's hear a bit more, and for good measure, I've inserted smugster Matt Goodwin as an example of the type of person Lucas refers to.
For some kind of exceptionalism, and you think of, the Boris Johnsons of the world and so many on the right who have a particular version of England that they like to describe.
That's why we're all here today. That's why so many people are watching us online. I believe in our remarkable identity. I believe in our history. I believe in our collective memory. I believe in all of the things that these islands have produced.
Obviously, it came out during the Brexit referendum, but it comes out in many ways. And I think the trouble is that on the left, we tend to be extremely squeamish about talking about England. It's as if it's a kind of a territory we dare not step into, because I guess we're afraid of the kind of symbols of England that we're too familiar with, the St George's flag that you see on St George's Day, often being accompanied by people who are kicking off in the streets outside Parliament, as they were last year when I saw them, or at the Southport riots, actually, those appalling race riots of last year. Again, there were many people either with the flag or who were saying they were doing what they were doing in the name of England.
So I believe in all of the things that our parents and their parents and their parents have put together over generations. I believe in this place that we call home. And so many people in our established political class don't believe that.
And for as long as we on the left don't even try to get involved and get on the pitch and try to tell a different story of England, then it feels to me as if we're basically ceding all of that ground to the right. And it's very convenient for them to tell the story of a little Englander that is predominantly white, that doesn't have a history of waves of immigration, as indeed, of course, we always have for generations. And there are some quite simple things that we could do, to try to push back. So, one of the stories, of course, during Brexit was all about how, we could go it alone, and there were pictures and statements around the Battle of Britain and pictures of the White Cliffs of Dover and so forth. And yet we could have pointed out that 1 in 10 of the RAF pilots who fought in the Battle of Britain were in fact refugees from occupied Europe. We could have begun to wrest some of that story back from the right, but we didn't.
Click here for Musk and Farage in the portal of stupidity.
That's why we're all here today. That's why so many people are watching us online, on YouTube, on the Instagram, on Facebook. I believe in our remarkable identity. I believe in our history. I believe in our collective memory. I believe in all of the things that these islands have produced. I believe in all of the things that our parents and their parents and their parents have put together over generations. I believe in this place that we call home. And so many people in our established political class don't believe that. The conservative philosopher Roger Scruton once said that good things, special things, are easily destroyed, but they're not easily created. And I don't know about you today, but I feel like on these islands, all of the things, the good things that were carefully put together by our ancestors, that were carefully cultivated and created, are now being destroyed by an elite minority in Westminster who don't really care about those things at all. We can all sense it. We can all feel it. We're losing something that's incredibly precious. And I think that feeling, that mood, that palpable sense that we wake up with can be summed up in 5 words. We want our country back. We want our country back from an elite minority in Westminster, Oxford, Cambridge, Brighton, who have absolutely no interest in representing the values and the voice of the forgotten majority in this country. An elite minority in both the Labour Party and the Tories that over the last 30 years have jammed an extreme political project down our throats. They've smashed the working class to pieces, and now that project is wholly responsible for the managed decline of our nation that you see around us today. Big state, big tax, big immigration, big debt, big spending, big welfare, big net zero, big on woke, big on anything and everything except the things that made these islands great to begin with. Individual freedom, liberty, entrepreneurship, genuine prosperity. Big on everybody except the British people and the English people. We want our country back from a hapless political class that thinks that the path to growth in this country is to give us the highest tax burden that we've seen since 1948. That tells us that we need migrants to do jobs in this country, while at the same time funding 6 million British people to sit at home on out-of-work benefits. A government that just increased taxes by another 40 billion, that is planning on increasing spending over the next few years by 32 billion, and which just gave 19 billion pounds, or pledged 19 billion pounds, to give our own territory away to the allies of China. It's absolutely outrageous. We want our country back from the established political parties, the uniparty, who promised us that we would return to being an independent, sovereign, self-governing nation, but which over the last 10 years or so has completely lost control of our borders, allowing more than 1 million illegal migrants to settle, to work, to live in Britain, who, let's be honest, not all of them, but many of them hate who we are, they hate our culture, and they hate our way of life. Just look at some of the utterly disgraceful things that are happening in Britain today. We just took winter fuel payments of pensioners in this country, while wasting £5.5 billion every year on our broken asylum system, which Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper and Labour refused to fix. It's absolutely outrageous. We are inviting people into this country who, as the evidence shows, are more likely to commit crime and who are a net fiscal cost to our national economy, meaning they're taking more out of the economy than they're putting in. Even the government's Office for Budget Responsibility now accepts this fact, that on average, each low-skilled, low-wage migrant coming into Britain is costing you, the taxpayers, around £500,000 over the course of their lifetime. We want our country back from the terrible Tories who spent 14 years telling you that they would lower legal immigration in this country, that they would deliver high-skill immigration, only to then, under Priti Patel, Kemi Badenoch, Boris Johnson, opened the floodgates to masses of low-skill, low-wage migration, nearly 90% of which is now coming from radically different nations, if not incompatible nations, outside of Europe. You know, they tell you to trust the expert class, but here's one statistic tonight I want you to remember. Since 2021, of the millions of people who have come into this country, only 15%, 1-5, came in on high-skill worker visas. 15%. Westminster is actually lying to you, claiming that migration is driving prosperity, it's driving our economy, but it's not true. And from January next year, the millions of people who came into this country will start to apply for something called indefinite leave to remain. In other words, they will stay here forever, having access to the NHS, student loans, the welfare state, and they'll be able to bring relatives in. Now, according to one report by the Centre for Policy Studies last week, that's going to cost British taxpayers £234 billion over the next few years. £234 billion. That's what our children are going to pay, and that's what their children are going to pay. The Tories very nearly destroyed this country when they were in office, so let me ask you a question. If you invited an architect into your home, and they very nearly destroyed your home, would you invite them back? Of course you wouldn't. So don't invite the Tories back. You know, we want our country back from an elite class that is spending £15.3 billion every year on foreign aid, that is sending money to help obese children in China, climate farms in Nepal, LGBT campaigns across Eastern Europe, but won't use that money to help pensioners here in Britain, to help people who have played by the rules their entire lives and who have paid into the collective pot. I think that's absolutely outrageous. And I don't know about you, but I think the fact we're still spending billions of pounds or wasting billions of pounds overseas is especially appalling, given that we are treating British people in hospital corridors and car parks in this country. It is absolutely despicable. We want our country back from a sprawling managerial and bureaucratic class in the public institutions, like the National Health Service, that on the one hand tells us it's cash-strapped, but on the other hand can find tens of millions of pounds for diversity and equality jobs. It's absolutely outrageous. This is the diversity industrial complex. This is the movement that's symbolised by the likes of Labour Mayor Sadiq Khan, Keir Starmer and the celebrity Wokarati, who are utterly obsessed with every kind of diversity except diversity of thought and diversity of opinion, like those guys outside. And what they want you to believe is that the only thing that defines nations, you have to understand what's going on in the West today. What they want you to believe is that the only thing that defines our nation is that we celebrate diversity. Diversity is the new conformity. But as the academic Francis Fukuyama once said, if the only thing that's holding a nation together is that you celebrate diversity, it's like saying you have no real identity of your own. And we have a remarkably unique and precious identity, history and culture in this country, and we don't want that to be reduced to the bland celebration of diversity. We want our country back from all of those activists, lawyers, judges, foreign courts, non-elected quangos who use the ridiculous laws created by Tony Blair to allow foreign murderers, rapists and other criminals, drug dealers, illegal migrants to stay on our streets, and a legal class who are using our own laws to make our home less safe. Do you know, the writer Thomas Sowell once said, immigration laws are the only laws that are ever discussed in terms of how to help people break them. Just think about that. That's what's happening in this country right now. We have an activist legal class that is more interested in helping people who break our laws than defending the people who respect our laws. We all know the hideous examples. We've seen them in the newspapers in recent weeks. The illegal migrant from Turkey who stabbed his wife to death was allowed to stay in the UK because he said that if he went back to Turkey, his in-laws might not like him very much. The asylum seeker from Iraq who's been allowed to stay in Britain after his mother refused to hand over his identity documents. The Jamaican drug dealer who ruined British families by dealing cocaine, by dealing heroin, and then was allowed to stay in Britain to avoid deportation because he said it would breach his right to a family life. The Albanian criminal who was allowed to remain in the UK because his son might not like foreign chicken nuggets. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. The lady from the Caribbean who illegally overstayed her visa in this country and then was allowed to stay after claiming that her Latvian husband might find the Caribbean too hot and might not like Caribbean food. I've said it before and I'll say it again because, conference, this is deadly serious. It's not just a joke. A nation that cannot control its own borders, a nation that cannot remove foreign criminal offenders from its streets is no longer a serious nation. So what would you do to fix these problems, they'll say in the newspapers tomorrow? Very clear. We leave the European Convention on Human Rights. We reform Tony Blair's ridiculous Human Rights Act. And we make it clear that our overwhelming priority in this country is to keep people who come from this country and their children safe and secure. That's our priority. And let me tell you, I want this country back from politicians in Westminster who've talked endlessly about George Floyd, who've talked endlessly about Stephen Lawrence, and for much of the last 40 years, they never said anything about girls like Lucy Lowe, Charlene Downs, and Victoria Agoglia, murdered by the Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs, or let's call them what they are, the rape gangs, and people like Thomas Roberts, a young aspiring Marine. He was murdered by an Afghan illegal migrant. Everybody in this country should know those names. Everybody in this country should know those names. Labour leaders like Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner rushed to take the knee, to express solidarity with a revolutionary social movement that hates the West. And now they can't even bring themselves to hold a national inquiry to bring those girls and their families the justice they deserve. It's outrageous. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sick while we're here of the legacy media class, some of whom are in the room, complaining endlessly about Elon Musk intervening in our debate to highlight the rape gang scandal. Well, let me just be clear about this. If you'd been doing your job, if you'd been searching for truth, if you'd been taking the rumours of rape gangs seriously from the 1980s onwards, we wouldn't need Elon Musk to intervene in our national debate. And now Keir Starmer, remarkably over the last few days, our Labour Prime Minister, has the gall to say this movement is a dangerous movement. This movement is a danger to the country's working class. Just like after Southport, just like after the rape gang scandal, Keir Starmer decided to dismiss millions of people in this country as jumping on the far-right bandwagon. I'll tell you what's dangerous. Dangerous is imposing mass uncontrolled immigration on a nation that never voted for it, that does not want it, while deriding anybody who voices concern about it as far right. That's dangerous. Dangerous in this country Keir Starmer, if you're watching, Dangerous is turning a blind eye to Islamist marches every week on the streets of these islands, while expanding definitions of Islamophobia to shut down legitimate and entirely acceptable debate about why we have an estimated 40,000 Islamist jihadis in this country, why we have Sharia courts in this country, and why we have Islamist sectarianism in our politics. That's dangerous. Dangerous is losing control of our borders and then just shrugging your shoulders, lying to people by telling them that you're bringing down the numbers of small boats. They're up 15%, while at the same time using draconian laws that are sending police officers to people's homes on these islands simply because of something they happen to share on Facebook in their own home. That's dangerous. And dangerous, I think, is telling the British people that you're on their side while delivering a two-tier justice system, letting sex offenders skip jail while locking up people who have written some hard truths on social media. And I won't take any lectures from the Labour Party as to who stands up for the working class, because let's not forget, it was the Labour Party that opened the doors to mass uncontrolled immigration, to a rampant globalisation that smashed the working class in this country, alongside net zero, to pieces. So look, conference, I want my country back, and I know that you want your country back. And if you look at the polls today, then I'm telling you, we are going to get our country back. But we're not going to do it without your help. This movement needs people to stand, put their heads above the parapet, become councillors, become party members, put yourselves forward at the next election. Chuck in 10 quid, 25 quid. This party needs the hard-working, tax-paying, patriotic, forgotten majority to do their bit. That's the way this country's always worked. It's the ordinary people in this country that get things done. It's the ordinary people who push forward to change our relationship with the European Union. It's the hard-working, tax-paying people in this country who reminded Westminster that they were woefully, utterly out of touch with what was going on outside of London in areas like this. So let's get out there, conference. Let's take back our country. Thank you very much.